into it. We're gonna start off here. And I think you might like this one because he told you, "Oh, you poor sweet soul." Over the years, I personally, anybody who listens to the podcast knows it's up and it's stuck for me when it comes to Justin Timberlake.
Okay.
I canceled him a long time ago. But some of us, and when I say us, I mean black people, we still rock with Justin Timberlake. So for you, Justin Timberlake, canceled or no?
Yeah, I think cancel. Yeah, it's a wrap for me. I
It's
mean,
a wrap. Do you want to talk? So like, this is a good transition, right? You want to talk about that whole exchange because
yeah.
I actually knew of you before I really knew of you
Okay.
because I remember when he shared that tweet, when he
Mm,
quoted your tweet and was like, "Oh, you poor sweet soul," and I was like, "Wow, that's very shady.
yeah.
Um, that's very condescending." Um,
Very.
and I felt like if you weren't a black gay male, he might not have said, "Oh, you sweet soul."
Right.
Talk about like what that was, and then what it was like for the the Justin trolls who came and attacked you afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about. I mean, this happened in 2016, so it's been
Mhm.
going to be 7 years this summer. But like, I mean, in a nutshell, I was live tweeting from my house, the BET Awards, and
Mhm.
Jesse Williams had received the humanitarian award and gave this really great speech about Black culture and Black Lives Matter, and really at one point in time talking about exploitation of Black culture and our heritage.
Oof.
And in that moment, this is deep. And Justin Timberlake gets on Twitter and he's like, inspired and, using AVA, African American vernacular, like saying, oh, though, inspired and all this. And I was just like, well, what are you inspired by? Because he's talking about people that have done things that you've done.
Mhm.
I
People
just
like you.
know what he was inspired by. Because a lot of people get on here and like him, put on the front on social media and act like they're really getting it. And I want to know how far did he get it. So
Mm.
I asked him questions like, were you inspired to stop culture appropriating? Were you inspired to apologize to Janet?
Mm.
And it went a different way. He read it a very different way. And it was very obvious based on his response that he wasn't that inspired or was not
Mm.
inspired in the right ways that he should have when it came to Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, it seemed very performative. Um, I feel like people like him. They wear our culture, like Jesse said, as costumes, right? They
Right.
cosplay as black people. They cosplay black culture, but then when it's really time for them to like stand up for black people, they really don't. I put Miley Cyrus in that same boat. I remember Miley was out here. She was hip hop this, hip hop that, and then once she used, she squeezed all the juice out of the hip hop lemon. Then she was like, "Oh, I don't like that music anyway."
No. Right. And we've seen this happen throughout the culture. We've seen this happen throughout many artists. And
Mm-hmm.
Justin Timberlake is someone who benefited the most from it. He had
Definitely.
an entire career built off of Michael Jackson's B-sides, throwing shots at Prince, um,
Yes.
and has consistently been someone that's benefited off of Black artists to propel his career. I mean, look at Timberland. Like without Timberland, I mean, Justin Timberlake's entire career would not have worked. Pharrell,
For
he
real.
really, leached on these types of artists to give him the sound and aesthetic and the look. And then when it was no longer profitable, he shifted to this man in the woods persona that also tanked,
Yes.
and it's been interesting for him ever since.
Talk to me about that. Like, how was it hearing something that you created, along with Kevin Prodigy, correct?
Yeah.
Um, what was that like hearing something that you created by and like being used by Beyonce? Not only that, but also the attention to detail of using the sampled voice of Moy.
Ke- More Renee
Yeah,
as well as Kevin Aviance too.
yeah, like and Kevin. It's
Um,
like, what was that like? Because that was intentional.
yeah, very intentional. It was just a gag for me. I mean, I remember once I found out that the whole thing was confirmed and that like this was happening. Like, of course, I had a cry moment. Like, what is happening, and just like so happy and overwhelmed with all of that. And yeah, it was just amazing. Like almost couldn't believe it for a while, and I wasn't also able to tell anybody,
Mm.
so I had to hold on to that and not
Beyonce loves them
speak
Indian.
to. Yeah, I didn't even tell my mother right away. Like, it was nobody that I told immediately. I held on to that for a little bit.